that? Wildcat Wrap with a courtside clicks. Perth Bright who vibes slam dunk flicks. Cause a play-by-play get your fix. Wildcat Wrap is a fan star pick. Wildcat Wrap with a courtside clicks. Perth Bright who vibes slam dunk flicks. Cause a play-by-play get your fix. Wildcat Wrap is a fan star pick.
Hello, everybody. This is Adam Batts here from the Wildcat Wrap. It's season 1, episode 7. Of course, everything that happens today is always presented and supported by the team at the Basketball Fix, led by the great man to my right or my left, depending on where you're looking and watching at, in Josh Higgins. Josh, welcome back to the show, and you must be up and about. A couple of great results for the Perth Wildcats that we're going to dive into really, really shortly. And, well, Josh, you are on the next level from an elite AAA behind-the-scenes kind of aspect. I believe you've been to a Perth Wildcats game backstage, talking to all the players, getting all the insight, everything all about it. So, of course, welcome to the show as always, and tell us about your experience, mate.
Yeah, well, thanks, mate. I'm looking forward to obviously getting back into this and talking to more Wildcats. But no, it was great. Obviously, shout out to the NBL and everyone within the Perth Wildcats organisation as well. I've finally been granted my official media pass, so I'll be attending more games now. I'll get backstage access, talk to some of the players, attend the press conferences, all that sort of stuff, mate. It was an unreal experience. It was incredible. So, getting to rub shoulders, I guess, with, Mike Wells, for example, at the press conference, with John Riley, Christian Doolittle, Sunday Detch, walking past all the players. It was great to see Elijah as well, obviously just a great young guy, and massive shout out to Todd Withers as well. He was really, really good with his time. We had an in-depth conversation there for about 5 or 10 minutes, mate. So, it was awesome. It was really, really good, and obviously that game was a great result, but we'll break that down very shortly, mate. But looking forward to getting stuck into episode 7, and I guess the third official episode with us back together, mate.
That's right, exactly. And was quite surprised that you yourself got the police clearance through for that backstage pass. So was unsure how that was all going to unfold, but maybe they did the background checks as well as they.
Yeah, we've been trying to get your one done, but that police clearance has been bouncing back. I'm constantly getting emails, mate, about this Adam Bat guy, and I'm a bit worried. So yeah, we might have to just keep you on the screens, mate. And that might be a little bit far enough, I think, away from a lot of people.
I must have gone through the junk folder, so I'll continue to refresh the junk folder, see what happens there. So I'm sure it's breakdown and transition somewhere. Australia Post these days, just can't rely on them at all. I'm sure that's the reason why.
Of course, Post one day.
But as always, the Basketball Fix is amazing. So for all your basketball needs, podcasts, all the fan podcasts, the great ones that are out there, not just the Wildcat Wrap, which is the number 1 show, and then there's a bit of a gap, and then there's just all the other ones after that. Please check them: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. It's all there. The website too. So please like, subscribe, leave a rating, and leave a review. Well, let's get to all the good stuff. Let's rewind, go all the way back firstly to Wednesday the 15th, up against the Brisbane Bullets. And it began with a 27 apiece first term, back and forth. A really, really good start by both teams. But the Perth Wildcats, they just exploded after that in that second term to once again show that incredible scoring power and punch that we've seen from them across the season. They won that second term 38-15, went into halftime with a 23-point lead. And despite a little mini fight back in that third term from the Bullets, mainly led by MVP contender Casey Prey, then former Perth Wildcat player, Perth would eventually run out winners 112-85. A couple of quick minor stats for mine before we go to you, Josh. 13 of 28 at 46% from three-point land. Really, really solid shooting, which is obviously a really high clip, and 12-3 steals. So just getting their hands on the ball, forcing turnovers. But from a Perth perspective, only 6 turnovers themselves. So they just really looked after the ball. Josh, how did you sort of see that game? Definitely we spoke about last week, a big time danger game, but they managed to just get the job done and do it quite convincingly.
Yeah, massive win for the boys. That second quarter was crucial, 38-15. You got to see Bryce, I guess, start to really flex those muscles. And even guys like Elijah Pepper had some pretty good games. And when you look at the stats here as well, so Bryce led the way with 36 points. Windler had 16 points and 6 rebounds. And then you go down to Keanu Pinder as well, 19 points, 6 rebounds, and Elijah Pepper, 10 points with the 2 rebounds, 1 assist, and 2 steals. So it was a really even game, and it was a really interesting game as well. I think if it wasn't for Casey Prather's 32 points in that particular game as well, this one could have been a whole lot uglier. But it's really interesting to see the Wildcats sort of, I guess, get in front of this one and really push and extend the margin, I guess, between these two teams. And we look back to the 2 games that they played at the start of the season. The one in Brisbane, which is where this game was played, the Bullets absolutely annihilated the Perth Wildcats. And it was an interesting game. And, you know, a lot of people thought when they came back to RSC Arena a couple of days later that there was going to be, you know, an interesting game. But then the Wildcats blew them apart. So all 3 of their games have just been absolute blowouts between these 2 teams. Now, the Wildcats are 2-1 on the series, but, you know, it's an incredible sort of game. I think that they're very undermanned and undersized, and that's a massive reason as to why this was such a big margin in the end. But yeah, credit to the boys. I think they did an amazing job. They rebounded well, they defended well. They're just playing as an all-around team, and they're playing really fast basketball as well, which is what's making me the most excited as a Perth Wildcats fan.
Yeah, no, spot on there as well. And I think, like I sort of touched on just briefly with the 6 turnovers that Perth had, but from a points from turnovers perspective, so Brisbane just were shocking in regards to basically giving the ball straight to the Perth. They were like, we actually don't want to score. You know, we don't like winning games, so we're just going to give you the ball. And if you could get lots of points against us, that would be amazing. So yeah, 32-6 points from turnovers for Perth. That was clearly the main stat that sort of defined the game itself. But and of course 45 points from the bench too. So you know the bench is coming up trumps. Let's just quickly jump to that Adelaide match, the next one, which was the open air game on Friday night, back at home as well. They did the hard way from a scoring perspective because Perth were -7% in field goals, -6% in 3-pointers, and also free throws too. But what I loved, and you sort of spoke about this, maybe it was last episode, the one before, the rebounding. Well, they listened to you, Josh. They were like, Josh is calling us out here. We've got to step up. We can't afford to not appease the big man at the Basel fix. All right. So +16 in rebounds and a huge 14-3 offensive rebound. So second chance points. That is gold when it comes to basketball. And yet again, they took care of the ball, only had 6 turnovers. So Josh, you were there in the glam, of course, you know, people giving you drinks and the food, and you know, of course, drinking responsibly, because you had the big job after of asking the tough questions to John Riley. After you got a chance to breathe when Craig O'Donoghue finished asking his 1,000 questions. But what did you make of the return to RAC Arena?
Yeah, I'll just preface quickly by saying, mate, I didn't actually drink at all for the whole night. I was absolutely nervous, and I don't like drinking on the job essentially anyway. So we'll get that one out of the way first and foremost. But it was a weird game, mate, because watching it live and not looking at statistics, obviously, until after the game when I was sort of scrounging a few questions, I guess, for the press conference. But it didn't really feel like the Wildcats were in that much trouble. They held Montrezl Harrell to, I believe, 6 points in the first half before he went on a bit of a run late and sort of kept them back into that game and got them going as well. But even BC as well didn't really feel like he had much of an impact. And it's weird to say when you look at the statistics, he had 22 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. That's a huge game from an individual. And, you know, I know he didn't have the 35 or 40, but maybe that's just a part of him shooting himself in the foot at the moment because he's been that sensational. That a 22-point performance with 7 assists is flying under the radar. So it was a really incredible game. Obviously, we've got to give a massive shout out to KD, the real KD, Christian Doolittle. Forget Kevin Durant, mate. This guy is the real man. 27 points, 10 rebounds in his return game. And something stupid like 24 minutes in that particular game as well. We sort of spoke to him after the press conference and everything like that. And he was just feeling it. He was confident. He was happy. He was excited. Obviously, Windler went down that particular game as well, which was a bit of a dampener on the game 8 minutes into that first quarter. But, you know, what Doolittle did so well was, I guess, play that role as what Dylan did. Probably not shoot as many 3-point shots as what Dylan does, but the defensive attributes that were there was really impressive. And he was able to body up with guys like Montrezl Harrell, guys like Isaac Humphries, Jarrell Martin, who are massive guys inside. And when you talk about the rebounding stats, for example, there, you've got an 18 or 19-year-old in Itan Almansa. You've then got Gianni Pinda, who's been in and out of form. And you've got Christian Doodle as essentially your 3 bigs with David Aquera as well. You would look at paper and say, I'd rather take Adelaide's 3 big men over Perth's 4 big men that I've just said then. but the Wildcats absolutely dominated the rebounding as well. It was something like 17 offensive rebounds to 3. And you talked about second chance points there. It was 18 second chance points to 5 for the Perth Wildcats in that particular game as well. So that is huge. I know they obviously shot a worse percentage, all that sort of stuff as well. But, Sunday Detch, I think we're going to give a massive shout out to. He held Bryce to 6 of 23 from the field. Sunday's an absolute amazing guy. I know this isn't an LA 36ers podcast, but Sunday's an absolute legend, a former Perth Wildcat as well that we've got to remember. So he did an incredible job on Bryce, his heart, his attributes, everything that he does. He is a very, very solid player for the LA 36ers. But screw them for now, mate. What an impressive win. Now we're second on the ladder, and it's looking up from now, mate. 4 of our next 5 are at home, and by God, I'm bloody excited to finish the rest of this season out.
Yeah, no, you absolutely should be. And, it's exactly Kevin who. It's Christian Doolittle. He should definitely be having the KD moniker because, you sort of highlighted him. 27 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 11 of 15 from the field, and plus 12 in the plus-minus section. But with a game that was only decided by 7 points, so 110 to 103, getting all those second chance points, well, that was the big thing, especially because they weren't shooting at a high clip like they were against Brisbane, and that they have been doing across most of the season. You sort of touched on briefly about coming ahead. 4 of the next 5 games are at home, but I think it's important now that they've finished that away stretch that I think we just have to acknowledge that. I just don't reckon it's been spoken about enough. They've won 6 of 7 on the road, consecutive games, back to back to back to back to back to back to back. And 4 of those were 20+ point wins. Yes, okay, we have to put it into context against the kind of opposition that they're playing, but it's not like they're beating them by 2 points. They're winning by 20+ in 4 of those 6 wins, and they increase their percentage as well by 5.5%. And when you get to the end of the season, percentage is absolutely supremely important. I know they beat Adelaide by 10, Cairns by 36. Of course, they lost to the Hawks by 32, got spanked, but so does everyone else in the competition. They beat Adelaide again by 24, New Zealand by 10, Tasmania by 32, and Brisbane by 27. So they're all pretty strong victories. So let's just before we move on, let's just finish off the rewind with I think we got to start giving them a lot of love for what they've done in this 6 or 7 games away on the road.
Yeah, definitely got to give them a bit of love and a bit of respect. I think it was a bit of a question at the start of the season, and I know fans were really freaking out about this year. I think people were bemused by the 3-year deal to John Rillie, and I'm not going to lie and say that I wasn't at the start, but seeing the sort of work that he's put in, the guys are buying in now. It looks like they're obviously having some success on the court. I just think John is such a good deflective coach, and I know it sounds stupid, but with the media really increasing within the NBL community, you've got to have a strong figurehead who can deflect a few things and take the heat. And not be afraid to sort of give it back at times as well. And we see John all the time. It was so funny just sitting there at the press conference, and Craig asked him, "So what did you think for the first question?" He's like, "Yeah, well, we won. What else? we won the game. It was a good game." And it's just it's just John, and I actually love it. You look at Justin Tatum, for example. He's got some charismatic about him, but he's also quite quiet and reserved, but also stands up for his players when he needs to. Dean Vickerman doesn't shut up, but he's an incredible coach and an absolute leader from the forefront, and he's not afraid to take some criticism and also give some back. So you've got to have a really strong coach, and I've just rattled off 3 coaches there. Where are their teams sitting? 1, 2, and 3 on the ladder. And it's super, super important that a guy like that and a mold of person like that can take the job, because he does an incredible job. But yeah, it's super exciting, mate. Obviously, like we mentioned, their last game, their away game, I guess you could say, for this year, obviously is at Kudos Bank Arena against the Sydney Kings. So it's going to be a massive game for the Perth Wildcats, because the implications on that, currently as we're recording right now, they're playing the Jack Jumpers. I'm not sure what the score is right now, though, but, they're a massive chance to squeeze into the top 2. So a game against the Sydney Kings, for example, could be a game where we're fighting for top 2, or it could be top 3. And that could be massive, because we're directly through to the playoffs if we finish top 2, and we have home court advantage, or we're playing in the play-in tournament, I should say. And it's a little bit of a sketchy one, because it's only that 1 game sort of series as well. So 1 poor game and your season's essentially shot. So I'm loving it, mate. It's been awesome. I'm looking forward to obviously breaking down what's coming ahead as well.
Yeah, it's once again going to go down to the wire. So the NBL, Larry Kesselman, David Stevenson, they are rubbing their hands with absolute glee. That's going to go it seems like it's going to go all the way down to the final game of the season, as it's, I'm pretty sure, done the last 2 seasons on the trot. So you just can't pick what's going to happen in the NBL. If you come in like 1% less, you're going to get smacked in the mouth. All right, let's get to a new segment that was introduced last week, and I think it seemed to be a fan favorite. It's Hypothetical of the Week. So we throw a question out firstly for Josh to have a response, our NBL expert, and then I have a lesser crack that's not as good as that. So let's look at the first one. So let's look ahead to maybe season 25-26. Just briefly, from a roster perspective, specifically the imports. If you were Danny Mills and you could piece together, Josh, 3 imports to complement your local contingent, where in this scenario, it's the same young players that the team has now, what would be your ideal complement of 3 imports? And let's just, you're not allowed to get another KD. You can't get Kevin Durant from the NBA. So let's just restrict it to the current crop of imports that we have in the NBL now. You can get any 3 you want to complement what you've already got. Who would you go with, mate?
Yeah, so I've gone a little bit different there, mate. Sorry, I had the microphone muted there, but I've gone a little bit different here. So I think the 2 that are going to be 100% definite is Bryce Cotton and Kevin Durant, obviously, a la Christian Doolittle. But I think they're 2 locks for me. I think what Bryce does is just unheard of. You know, it's all time. You know, it's one of the greatest things. And Doolittle as well, the ability to guard 1 to 5 and really do it at a consistent level. He's 100% in my team. Now, I think that would be most people's thoughts as well. And the 3rd import spot is where it does open up. Now, this is where I have my questions. So all things considered, if we have the same team as we do next year with Ben Henschel, Elijah Pepper, young guys like that, I think Al Munster will be out of the league, but that's fine. I think we've got to go and target a really strong 5-man. And I don't want somebody who needs to come in and wants to score 15 to 20 points per game. Because we've got Bryce, we've got Doolittle, we would have Pinder, let's say we've got Pepper, we've got Henschel. I think we needed a bit of a defensive anchor at the 5. And someone who's not afraid to shoot. Maybe it's a pick and pop guy, a pick and roll guy. This guy's a pick and roll guy. You see him all the time on Melbourne United's team, and I'm talking of Marcus Lee. So top 30 defensive rating in the NBL. He's averaging a career high 1.7 blocks per game, which is leading the NBL this particular season as well. He's doing all of that in 16.9 minutes per game, coming off the bench most of the time as well, shooting roughly 60% from the field. I know a lot of his shots are inside, and like I said, it's a lot of pick and pop, sort of pick and roll sort of play, I should say, as well. 5.1 rebounds, 1 assist per game, 6.8 points. Now, the stats don't blow off the page, but it's not about what he is doing statistically. It's what he does for the team when he's on the court, and that's defensively. So I think that would be a really, really good lineup for the Wildcats. You could probably go Webster, Cotton, Christian Doolittle, Keanu Pinder, Marcus Lee. Off the bench, you've got Henschel off the bench. You've got Elijah Pepper off the bench. You probably still have Michael Harris, maybe David Aquera, and some other guys that you might find. So I think that would be up there as one of the solid sort of 5-man rosters. I think you get him for relatively cheap because he's not obviously going to be an in-demand import as well compared to what some of these other guys will be. But yeah, I think it would statistically work for the Wildcats, and I think it'd be quite beneficial as well because sometimes inside we do get attacked, and that's where I think Keanu Pinder sort of becomes the fall guy essentially for the Perth Wildcats.
Yeah, look, I think that's a really, really strong case. And I definitely looked at Marcus Lee for sure. I'm spot on with you where they need to go back to getting a strong 5-man. BC's a no-brainer, and Christian is just supremely flexible. And just obviously a really good looking import as well too, just as we touched on last week. But I went sort of a bit more scoring power, not because we don't have it, but either Montrezl Harrell or Matt Hurt from Southeast Melbourne. So their statistics are both pretty similar, about 20 points per game. Montrezl is getting about 9 rebounds, whereas Matt Hurt's about 7. And 31 minutes apiece, so like not the high 35 36s, but still quite a bit of time on court, and then their plus minus is sort of relatively similar as well. So one of those two individuals, if we're just going for a straight edge kind of guy, definitely Matt Hurt, because we just seen what Montrez brings, passion, yes, but also controversy with him too. So I don't know whether that's the kind of person that we would want in a Perth Wildcats organization, but absolutely see the benefit of a Marcus Lee too.
I just want to say something, mate. If Montrezl Harrell ever rocked up in Perth and was playing for the Perth Wildcats, I can guarantee you I would no longer be a fan of the Wildcats. I can't stand him. I know he's been good for the league. I know he obviously brings people, he brings fans, he brings clicks, but he is the biggest selfish individual I've ever seen. They were in the layup line at that game at RSC Arena against the Perth Wildcats, and Harrell wasn't out there for the first 10 minutes. He came out for the last 5 minutes. He was messing around, throwing the ball up in the air, alley-oop, dunking himself, all this sort of shit. Wasn't really caring at all. I know he's probably good for the team, who has a bit of a laugh with everyone, but he is one of the most arrogant pieces of shit you've ever seen in your life. So I would not like to see him in a Perth Wildcats uniform. Mark Arena, if you're watching this right now, John Riley, Danny Mills, whoever the heck I've got to speak to right now, do not sign this man. If he ever approaches you guys, block his number straight away. We'll get that one off the bat there, mate.
Well, what I really want to know, Josh, is what you actually think of Montrezl Harrell. So that would be great. So because I'm still slightly unclear.
I love him, yeah.
Right, so
I love him, man. I think we should sign him, 100%.
All right, so there you go. A nice little hypothetical that I certainly got. And fans, just like with all of our hypotheticals, feel free to hit us up on those fan pages and give us your thoughts. If you could have 3 imports for the 2025-26 season, unlimited funding, give us some ideas. Because I'm sure, as you sort of said, Josh, John Riley, Danny Mills, the whole Perth Wildcats frontier, they check in and tune into the Wildcat Wrap every single week for great ideas just like these ones. So we're helping you guys out, right? So a quick little injury update. Ty Webster, the hamstring is still there. He still has both of them, but the other one's slightly, getting better, 1 to 2 weeks. So if the Wildcats can keep doing what they're doing, and finals is a very strong possibility, of course, then he will hopefully be there for their finals push. All right, a little bit of young talent time talk. So let's break down the young talent time for the roster. So the 4 or 5 players that are in that kind of bracket, and I guess what their situations look like heading into the next couple of seasons. So we've got David Aquera, who's got a mutual option for next year. Dante Russo-Nance, who's made the court the last couple of games, mainly because they've been blowouts, which has been great for him. I think he scored his first points and his first 3-pointer the last couple of games as well. So he's actually going to be on the roster full time for the next 2 seasons. Benny Henschel is out of contract, but hoping for Ben that he can get to the NBA. If not, I'd say he'd be a very strong chance to come back to Perth. Elijah Pepper, he's got a team option for 25-26. That would be a no-brainer for mine if you're Danny Mills. And then Ethan Munzer, he's signed for next season, but the way that he's projecting, he is unlikely to be here for a second season. So, like, you possibly got 3 of those 5 coming back. Just maybe a slight look into the future, Josh, but also what have you made of these individuals in particular across the season to date?
Yeah, I think all of them have shown glimpses as to why they're probably going to be NBL players for some sort of time. And I'm not meaning like, that's all they're going to get to. I mean, if there's ever a chance that they can play professional basketball in Australia, they're going to play because they're very handy individuals. And I think David Aquera has been the one that's kind of surprised me. Statistically, he doesn't punch you in the face, essentially, but he's really impactful when you watch him live. And I think it's a different beast when you're sort of at a game, you're watching structure and you're watching things, whereas more when you're watching on TV, you've got your phone in your hand or you're having a conversation with somebody, and you really focus in, I guess, at the games. And Aquera had 8 rebounds on the weekend. I know he had 3 points against LA 36ers, but 8 rebounds was huge. And that massive putback dunk that he had as well. He's showing some really good glimpses into what he can sort of become in the NBL. Now, I'm not going to say this is going to happen, but think Majuk Deng for him. Like a really gangly guy who can get above the ring, but also can shoot the 3-point shot as well. And he's a bit of a fire starter. If you watch him, he had that posterizer and that big putback, and he was getting the crowd involved. He's throwing the hands up. I love him. I think his energy is really, really good. So for a young guy coming through, It's going to be interesting to see how he goes at the NBL 1 level again this year. I think he needs to have another big year before he has another step in his development. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Dante, I'm not set on. I think it's obviously nice having him as a development player, but going into full roster spots, you've got to start to play them now. And this is where it becomes challenging because he's a point guard, but I don't think he's got that great of handles, and I'm not sure if he's the best playmaker as well. And I know he's not a super talented scorer. He does score some pretty good shots here and there in the NBL 1 level and when they went over and played at the NZNBL. But I'm just not sure he's cut out for NBL level. Like, I think it's a tough one for me. Now, Benny Henshaw, Elijah Pepper, let's throw them into the same boat. Both of these guys could go play NBA basketball. I think they've both got different attributes. I think Elijah's more of a scorer who could be more suited to the NBA game than what Ben Henshaw would be. I think Ben needs the ball in his hand a little bit too much for a guy. He's not really a spot-up shooter. As much as he can do it, I think he's still more of a, sort of playmaking two, essentially, or an off-the-ball two. But it's going to be interesting. But he's obviously rising up in NBA draft rankings, which is really exciting for Ben. And like I mentioned as well, Elijah. I think both those guys will be back in Perth Wildcats uniforms next year because I really can't see Benny Henshaw wanting to go and play in the G League over the NBL. I know Luke Travers is doing that right now. But, I'm not sure Ben would be that fond of it. He hasn't left Perth just yet. I think he's still thinking about staying here. But Munster will definitely be in the NBA next year at some capacity, whether it's the G League, whether it's in the NBA full-time. We may even see him get signed by a team and float back into the NBL. I'm not sure how it all works out with the Next Star program, but it's going to be interesting. But out of those 5 guys, I'm happy with 4. And Dante, I'm happy with. I know we've got to give him time to develop, but I'm just not sure I'm seeing the signs just yet that you've seen from some of these other guys coming through this season, last season, and sort of over the last sort of 5 years as well. So it's going to be interesting, mate. But yeah, obviously it's really nice having some really talented young players in our team.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for Dante, similar to what Ben did last season in the NZNBL, he needs a big NBL 1 season or NZNBL season coming out. He's just got to hopefully get lots of game time, lots of minutes, work on his craft, and then come back, for those coming 2 years with a full-time roster spot ready to attack. And then hopefully John can give him some game time in there as well. I did listen to a podcast, not as good as the Wildcat Wrap, of course, but to a lesser extent, Craig O'Donoghue's the Dribble podcast. So a little shout out to Craig there. But he interviewed Ben Henshaw, and Ben was saying that once the season finishes for Perth, whenever that ends up being, he is going over to the US to do training camps. So for a whole heap of NBA teams. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. But yeah, as you said, he may not be that kind of person that wants to play in the G League and just sort of do the Luke Travers kind of model. Maybe wants to come back to Perth, have another really, really good season, break out hard. Like he's had a breakout season this season, but really go to another level and just make your case undeniable for an NBA perspective for 26, 27 season. So yeah, but as you sort of said, just so good to have such incredible young talent coming through, and we are a great feeder system for these individuals. All right, let's get to the preview. So look into a bit of a crystal ball, couple of games ahead. So we've got Melbourne United, a massive game, the big one on Wednesday, Jan 22 at RAC Arena, followed by Cairns on Saturday, Jan 25. It's a bit of a danger game, but we just have to take care of business. So Josh, do you want to give us just your quick thoughts on how you reckon these 2 games are going to unfold?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because they're quite different contrasting teams. I think Cairns are a little bit more offensive-minded than defensive, and I think they've obviously got some guys who can ruffle some feathers. Tanner Groves has been quite good over the last couple of games. Pedro Bradshaw. Rob Edwards had a really big breakout game against the Brisbane Bullets in their last matchup as well, where he scored 35 points. And then you mix it all together with Taron Armstrong and Sam Wardenberg, who are arguably some of the best young stars coming through as well. So they're a bit of a danger team, I think. If it was over in Cairns, I'd be even more confident because we just love playing in Cairns. But the fact that it's at RSC Arena, I'm still relatively confident. I think you've got to win these games this time of the year. And, when you're looking to secure top 1 or even top 2 spots, you've got to knock these ones off on the head. So I think it's a guarantee we'll win this one, to be honest with you. I'm going to probably put the mockers on them right now, but I think it's a guarantee. But the Melbourne game's a little bit of a worry for me. So Melbourne have won 4 of the last 5 matchups against the Perth Wildcats. Now, 2 of those have been in RAC Arena. where they have won as well. So you just look back to the start of the year where they beat us 97-68 in RSC Arena. Granted, we didn't have a whole team here. We weren't flying as much as we were, but it's still a danger game because we know one man loves playing in RSC Arena, and that's Chris Goulding. We know that. That's a guarantee. And he had 42 points a couple of weeks ago against the New Zealand Breakers, and he's been on an absolute tear recently. But he loves playing at RSC Arena. It's going to be very interesting to see what he can do. Statistically, it's an interesting one. So Melbourne are averaging 94.4 points per game to our 99.1 points per game, which is huge. But we're allowing 95.3 points per game to then 91.4 points per game. So defensively, it's going to be where it could be interesting. And I just don't think you can stop Bryce Cotton in the form he's in. Forget Shea Ely, forget Matthew Dellavedova. I just don't think you can stop him at all. I still think he's going to get his 20 to 30 points per game and just really close the season out strong. What you've got to stop is Christian Doolittle. So I don't think Windler's going to play in this particular game. He's got a cut under his eye. I just don't think they'll risk him in a game like this. I know it's obviously super important in terms of ladder positionings and seedings and all sort of stuff as well. But you saw what the team could do last week. But I think you shut Christian Doolittle down, you've got a massive chance, obviously, beating the Perth Wildcats. Because like I said, yeah, he's been huge. Obviously, his second game back from the injury. But yeah, Bryce is going to do his thing. I think Doolittle will still do his thing as well. But you've got to try and limit him on the offensive end and really, really tire him out on the defensive end as well. So I can't wait, mate. RSC Arena, Wednesday night, 6:30 p.m. for all our West Australians. It is going to be a fun night. Make sure we pack out these games as well. I know a Wednesday night isn't the funnest thing, but it's still school holidays. Get your kids up. I know it's a late night, but have some fun.
Yeah, it's like that classic unstoppable force versus the immovable object kind of game. Like the unstoppable force, the Perth Wildcat, the scoring prowess, like the potency to just pack on 110 points versus, the classic Dean Vickerman kind of team, the immovable object, just like so strong defensively. So, and yeah, we the man who shall not be mentioned, like just people, the Perth Wildcats fans absolutely loathe him. But yeah, he just loves playing at RAC. So hopefully this may be the anomaly and he might have a night off. We can only hope so. But yeah, it's going to be a cracker of a game. And yeah, Perth Wildcats fans, pack out the stands, make it a sea of red.
So do the Illawarra Hawks boys, though, eh? Have you seen that, mate, over the weekend? They hate Goulding as well. I think we should get something pretty similar. Get the flop count banner going as well, make some t-shirts up. I love that. I thought that was really cool. I know I know it's a bit of fun. I'm not discrediting greatness. I think he's still one of the top players in the league, but my God, does he sometimes accentuate some calls? And he's done it for his whole career. People who don't say flops and that sort of stuff have absolutely lost their mind, or they're one-eyed Melbourne United supporters, mate. But yeah, like I said, at the end of the day, he's a truly great player. And yeah, massive shout out to the Illawarra Hawks. That was awesome.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a battle of the floppers on Wednesday night. So Jesse down one end, and of course the man who shall not be mentioned down the other end. So yeah, interesting to see how that falls. But just wanted to come back to a quick question from last week that we didn't have chance to, just to quickly run through it. So it was last week that actually came out that Mark Arena was sort of discussing the potential and the viability of maybe NBL in-season games are being played in regional areas. So I guess the simple question is, Josh, do you think that not just pre-season games, which we know the Perth Wildcats do quite a bit, but actual NBL games, and there's talks also about extending the season too to make it a little bit longer, so more games for the fans and of course the players too. Is this viable? And do you know if there are any NBL venues that are at country areas that are up to NBL standards?
Yeah, well, there's plenty of NBL 1 arenas around everywhere. We've got in Kalgoorlie, the Goldfields team, they've got their own pretty decent stadium. And it's not going to be 10, 15,000 seat stadiums. Yeah. It's going to be 2,000, 3,000 seat stadiums. And that's completely fine. That's what it's all about. It's not about, us city folk essentially going up to Kalgoorlie for a weekend to watch the Wildcats. It's about going and rewarding these country teams, essentially, these country places, I should say, who don't get to watch Wildcats games live because it's so far away. And that's what we forget about a lot. We forget that WA alone is one of the biggest pieces of land and states in the whole world. It's a third of America when you put it into perspective. It's a massive, massive state. So you've really got to think about it like that. There's games that we could go play up in Kununurra, for example, and next week go down and play in Albany. get the best of both worlds. You're going down south, you're going up north, and you're getting everyone involved because, yes, it's called the Perth Wildcats, but it's WA's team. And that's really, really important. I know, obviously, that the home arena's in Perth, and I completely understand that. But look at the success in Melbourne, for example, when they went down to Traralgon. Now, I know the court probably wasn't up to date because of the humidity, but that place was packed. There was 3,500 people at the Melbourne State Basketball Centre. So I love the idea. I think it's really, really important for community engagement. This is a community club. That's a massive thing that the Perth Wildcats have built their whole foundation on is inclusion, getting everyone together and having lots of fun. So, I know there's been a lot of people who have been whinging about, oh, but I pay my membership and I'll miss 2 games. You won't miss 2 games if the season gets extended because those games will not be in your membership.
Yeah.
And if you're that busted about 2 games, right, just stop thinking about yourself for a bit. You've had a lot of games. There's plenty more games that you guys can go and see. You can see the games that really matter, the finals games, the playoffs games. These people have to fly down or drive long, long times to go and visit these games. So I love it. I think Mark's doing an amazing job. I've been on record many, many times saying how good he has done, sort of been for the organisation. I love this little cheeky comment. We mentioned John really earlier, mate. This has just come to my head. He said on there, "Where's the Perth Wildcat haters now saying that I signed John for 3 years too long?" So I love Mark. He's been amazing, but I love this idea, mate. I think it should start happening more often.
Yeah, I'm not going to add any more to that. I think that was a really, really well put together answer. And yeah, you're spot on. Perth is not just about Perth City; it's about the whole state of WA. So yeah, Mark Arena, there's a really good case for you to consider. So from one of the best and one of the most influential, I guess, personalities, we definitely want to call you now, Josh, for sure. So let's get to the best part of our podcast, because we are a podcast that is by fans, for fans, more so than some of the other fan podcasts tend to sort of talk about themselves a lot, especially, a Tasmanian comedian who just loves, big noting himself. I don't know who he is, whatever his name. I don't know. Is it like Steve, I think? I don't know. But let's get to the rapid fire Q&A. So check in with the best people, our Perth Wildcat fans. And they've sent in some great questions, as they always do. Josh, you're going to throw a couple of questions at me. So I'm ready, mate.
Well, Alison Owens has asked, mate, so she's got 2 questions here. So I'll get you to answer the first one first, a bit more of a bit of fun one. Can we start a GoFundMe page for keeping Bryce Cotton in Perth? I'll get that one out there, mate. There's a couple of spelling mistakes on the run sheet there. It sort of put me off a little bit. But should we get a GoFundMe starter for Bryce Cotton, mate, or what's the go there?
Yeah, no, I think that is a great idea, because it's not like we have a cost of living crisis at all. I'm sure people would very much love to throw an extra couple of dollars towards Bryce. So if, I don't know how many people we've got in the state, definitely probably 1.4 million, I think, which I reckon is the offer on the table, or maybe on the table from Japan. So yeah, if everyone could chuck in $1, because obviously we are a state team, not just a Perth City team, that would be brilliant. So yeah, Alison, I think get it started. We will be right behind you for sure.
Yeah, I'll walk around at the next home game with a couple of those little money jars, and we'll get the 10 and 5 cent pieces out of everyone's pockets as well. Now, the second question here as well, mate. Who's locked in for next season, and who should be resigned for next season as well? This is a big one, because there's a lot of guys who are out of contract here. Now, you've got Windler, you've got potentially Doolittle as well. You've obviously got Bryce with the contract extension possibly coming up. So there's our 3 imports that are already done there as well. And there's a couple of local guys. Jesse as well hasn't locked in for this season. Obviously, he's a bit of a game-to-game, minute-to-minute, season-to-season sort of guy at the moment. But yeah, who's locked in for the season, and who's some teams or some players that we should re-sign for next year?
Yeah, it's a really terrific question. And we sort of broke down a lot of the younger players earlier on, so we don't need to address them too much. But the big 3 guys, of course, Bryce, hopefully he will be able to re-sign. I would definitely be going Christian again. He was signed quite early in the off season, only a couple of weeks or maybe a month after the season finished. So I'm hoping that he's keen to go around again. Look, I think the 3rd spot is DW. It depends on what kind of finals campaign he has. If he has a really, really strong, finals push, and is, I guess a big indicator and reason why they get to the grand final series. And of course, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. If they can get to a semi-final series too in the back end of the season, then you wouldn't be begrudging at all if they gave him another 1-year contract. But we spoke about the hypothetical of the week, and there are other options out there if DW doesn't or isn't that guy on a consistent basis that we've all sort of seen him produce sporadically. So I guess from an import perspective, that's where we sit. And yeah, Jesse, I guess for 4 years, everyone's probably been saying, Jesse, you're done, retire. He's actually been, I think, quite positive in the 5 to 10 minutes that he gets most games. He normally hits 1-3 at least a game. Him and Bryce, not from a scoring perspective. I think someone posted it in one of those Facebook amazing Perth Wildcats fan chats or pages that are they the best 1-2 combination in the league? And from Perth Wildcats perspective, yeah, I like it. They're certainly right up there in the mix because they just work so well together, that pick and pop, and they just know where to go. So if Jesse thinks he can go, then definitely go again. But I think it's a Jesse kind of answer. I'm sure they'll ask him to go, and it's up to him. So yeah, it's certainly going to be a very different looking roster come next season. If a number of these individuals don't want to come back again. So a lot of it, unfortunately, is in the players' hands.
Yeah, I think you're bang on there, mate. It's going to be interesting. Like, yeah, when you talk about 1-2 punches, mate, you normally think of Jalen Adams and Xavier Cooks, or you think of Chris Goulding and I don't know who else they've got over there. You think of really good players. But I think yeah, you go there. But I just think the way that I think what you're more saying is the way that they play basketball together and the teamwork. I don't think there's a better teamwork duo than what those two guys have. So I think you're bang on there, mate. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what goes on. But you've got a couple of questions here for me as well, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's one of your mates too. So Moose Hansen, and he asked, with a handful of games left, what's the final standings going to be, and where can the Cats finish? So a very open-ended question here for you, Josh.
Yeah, he's stitched me up here, hasn't he? But I think we'll know the overall standings for second or third after the game on Wednesday night against Melbourne United. I think whoever wins that game will establish themselves as the number 2 seed. And whoever loses that game could drop down to as low as 5th, for example, because South East have won their last 4 games. I think the Kings are on a 2-game win streak now. They just won this afternoon. And obviously the Wildcats are on a 5-game win streak. So I think still, Melbourne are a massive chance finishing top 2. It's going to come down to that game against the Perth Wildcats. So, top 6. I'm going to go Illawarra, Perth, Melbourne, South East Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide as my top 6. I think that will be the way. So Tassie will miss out. I think they've just been unfortunate with injuries. It'll be the first time in NBL history that they've missed out in the playoffs. That's massive. But yeah, I think they'll miss out. Brisbane will miss out. New Zealand Breakers will miss out, and the Cairns Taipans as well. So that's my top 6, mate.
Yeah, no, I think it's as you sort of touched on looking into the crystal ball, it's that huge game on Wednesday night, the Melbourne and Perth game, just mouth-watering contest. So it's going to so many permutations for so many teams, and how I guess the 6 is going to look. The last one is any news on Dylan Windler's eye injury? So do you think he's probably not going to be available for Wednesday, but a possibility for the next game from like a concussion protocol perspective?
Nah, so there's no concussion at all. So that was pretty cleared up. That was cleared up pretty quickly. So no concussion. It was just a cut. Not just a cut. It was a cut to the face. I think it was just under the eye, for example. So a nasty spot, because those things, you see it all the time in UFC, one more hit in those spots and those things continually tear. They're very, very tender spots. So they've got to really do their due diligence there. They've got to make sure that heals up properly, because one more hit again can reopen those wounds up very quickly. I can't see him playing at all this week. So I think he'll miss the game against Melbourne, and he'll also miss the game against the Cairns Taipans. And then I think he'll be a bit of a reevaluation, because I think they actually go into a 12-game break after these 2 games here. So that probably comes at a nice time. I think you give him 3 weeks off now to sort of get that healed up. And it also really helps the Perth Wildcats going forward, because we don't need him right now. We need him when it really comes down to the important time, which is the playoffs and really trying to win that championship, mate. So I'll be resting him no matter what. And obviously it's a big loss, but we've got Doolittle back, mate. So that makes our life a lot easier.
Yeah, no, very true. I mean, I guess Dylan carried the weight when Christian was out, so now it's time for Christian to do the same with DW out too. Just before we sign out, just one more quick one from Alice, and I'm just going to quickly throw at you, Josh. What was your take? And you were there at the arena, so you would maybe know it a little bit better. And I don't know if it was asked in the press conference, didn't get a chance to look at that, but I do want to, because I have to hear about my main man's questions that he asked at the 9-minute mark of the press conference. But what was your take on the 3-point 3-point shotgun celebration of Montrezl Harrell towards John Riley on Friday.
Yeah, no, it's a bit of fun, mate. But it comes back to what I said about him earlier. I think he's one of the biggest cockheads in NBL, and I think that really accentuates it, mate. I know he was playing into the crowd, and the crowd was absolutely booing him. You should have even heard when his name got announced at the start of the game for the starting lineup. There was boos already, and he's giving them the little, come on, let's keep going as well. So, now I think Perth hated him. I think they've got every right to hate him as well. I think majority of the NBL hates him, to be honest with you. We hate greatness. It's just Aussie way of doing it, isn't it? You know, the whole league hates Bryce Cotton, for Christ's sakes. You know, they love Andrew Gaze all of a sudden because his dad coached him for 20 years and made him have every shot in a particular game. But, you know, Bryce Cotton, who's arguably the greatest player of all time, everyone hates on him still. So it's always interesting, mate. But, I thought it was a bit funny. It was a bit of byplay. I'm only having a bit of a laugh here. Montrez is a heck of a bloke and a heck of a player. But, yeah, it's I think just keep your celebrations, mate, when you actually win a game of basketball.
Yeah, no, I mainly wanted to ask that question just to give you one more opportunity to give him a whack. So, but yeah, unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be coming on the Basketball Fix for a one-on-one anytime soon.
Such a shame. Such a shame.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. You were gearing up for the next one too, I bet. But unfortunately, time has gotten the best of us. So that is the end of our episode. Just before we sign off, why don't you give us a little run through of what's ahead for the week in the Basketball Fix of podcast coming out?
Yeah, so obviously if you guys are listening to this episode, you made it this far. It is Monday, and we've had the Wildcat Wrap podcast come out. We've had the Brisbane broadcast first episode finally come out as well. So that'll be out as well. Now, if you haven't already, I know a lot of these people are Perth Wildcats fans, and I'm all about that as well. But if you do want to listen to other teams' podcasts, we've got the Brisbane broadcast, the Illawarra Hawks Hangout podcast, Tasmanian Takeover, King's Table. We've also got the Breakers Breakdown. And then from a Basketball Fix perspective, NBL Supercoach Sessions is finally back this week, mate. We've got an absolute day to finally record that, so I'm looking forward to doing that. And we have a bit of a special guest on Beyond the Buzzer. I'm not going to reveal his name just yet, but he's a good-looking bloke who Batty's not very fond of in the NBL. Hasn't really been a fan. He sort of said to me off air a couple of weeks ago, when such and such is commentating, mate, I can't stand it. I think I like to turn the TV down or mute the TV. He said something on the lines of that, mate. But stay tuned for that. That'll be out on Wednesday afternoon. It's going to be a heck of an episode with myself and Ryan. Obviously, we're replacing Jeremy. He's not dead. He's not sacked. He's just on holiday with his brother. So we'll get that one out there nice and early. But no, definitely, mate. It's looking really, really good. Plenty of articles out there as well. There's 5 or 6 articles a week now from myself, the boys at the Basketball Fix, some of the other guys as well who have jumped on. And yeah, plenty going on. So make sure you go and check out the Basketball Fix. Check out the socials as well at the Basketball Fix. You can see it down in the bottom right corner of your screen. And yeah, make sure you follow because we've got a special giveaway coming out as well, mate, for our 1,000th Instagram follower. We've got 2 $100 gift cards to give away from the Sporting Globe. So stay tuned. Go check it out on Instagram and get yourself involved as well in the next couple of weeks.
Well, there you go. Like, if you didn't have any more incentive, like who doesn't love free gift cards, and especially at the Sporting Globe, just a great spot. I think Belmont's one of their locations too. I think there's possibly one north as well. But good looking guy. Well, it can't be Christian Doolittle, so I just don't know who it's going to be. So watch this space anyway. But look, it's been a great. It is always lots and lots of fun talking a bit of Perth Wildcats and just shooting the breeze, talking a bit of Perth Wildcats, and of course NBL, which we love. So please like, subscribe, leave a rating, leave a review, do all the good stuff. And we want the Perth Wildcats to win the best fan podcast in Australia, or at least the Basketball Fix. But please look after yourself, stay safe. And from Josh and I and the whole team at the Basketball Fix, well, we're out for now.
Wildcat Wrap with a courtside clicks. Perth Pride who vibes slam dunk flicks. Cause a play-by-play get your fix. Wildcat Wrap, it's a fan star pick. Wildcat Wrap with a courtside clicks. Perth Pride who vibes slam dunk flicks. Cause a play-by-play get your fix. Wildcat